While the rest of the Formula One grid was still packing up after the British Grand Prix, Ferrari had already begun planning their next strategic move. On Thursday, July 9th, Charlotte and Lewis Hamilton made history by becoming the first drivers ever to run a current Formula One car around the brand-new Madring circuit in Madrid, and remarkably, they managed to do it completely free of cost. Even more importantly, their rivals currently have no way to replicate what Ferrari has just done. So let's break down exactly what took place, what Ferrari was actually testing, and why this could give them a significant edge heading into the Spanish Grand Prix later this year. To begin with, the context matters. The Madring is set to join the Formula One calendar in 2026 as a brand new 5.4-kilometer circuit featuring 22 corners, combining public road sections with permanent track infrastructure. It will replace the long-standing Barcelona venue, which hosted the Spanish Grand Prix for decades. Madrid's deal is reportedly worth around €48 million annually to Formula One, almost double what Barcelona paid, and the agreement runs through to 2035, making Madrid the only European capital on the calendar for at least the next 10 years. The inaugural race is scheduled for September 11th to 13th, placing it at a critical point in the latter part of the European season. Because the circuit is completely new, no team has historical data, meaning no one truly understands how the asphalt will evolve, how surface bumps will influence car behavior, or how the demanding corners will affect tire degradation. In modern Formula One, data is everything, and arriving at a new track without it usually forces teams to spend the entire Friday practice session simply establishing a baseline setup. However, Ferrari will not face that disadvantage. On Thursday, they deployed their current 2026 challenger, the SF26, onto the Madring, with Charlotte taking the first laps shortly after his major Silverstone victory, followed by Lewis Hamilton. Officially, the session was categorized as a filming or promotional day, which under Formula One regulations allows each team 2 such days per year. These sessions are restricted to 200 kilometers of running and require the use of special super-hard Pirelli demonstration tires instead of standard race compounds. Ferrari had already used their first filming day earlier in April at Monza to introduce upgrades ahead of Miami, making this Madrid run their second and final filming opportunity of the season. So why commit their last promotional day to a circuit that is not even fully completed yet? The answer lies in a clever interpretation of the rulebook. Formula One enforces strict testing regulations, preventing teams from using older cars to test new circuits, especially those not present on the previous season's calendar. The FIA specifically tightened rules around testing previous cars to stop teams from gaining early advantages at new venues. If a track did not exist on the calendar the year before, private testing there is not permitted. However, filming days are exempt from these restrictions because they are officially classified as promotional activities, meaning there are no limitations on location. Ferrari identified this loophole and took full advantage by scheduling their session at the Madring. Even with demo tires and a 200-kilometer limit, the data collected is incredibly valuable. In the current ground effect era, ride height and suspension stiffness are among the most critical setup factors, and by running the SF26 on the actual circuit, Ferrari's engineers could precisely measure surface bumps, corner profiles, and grip characteristics. But perhaps the most crucial element they evaluated was La Monumental, the standout corner of the new circuit. This section is expected to be one of the most challenging in Formula One, featuring a massive 550-meter sweeping turn with an extreme 24-degree banking. For comparison, Zandvoort's banking reaches only 18 degrees, while Indianapolis Motor Speedway has just 9 degrees. A 24-degree bank generates enormous vertical and lateral forces, pushing the car heavily into the track surface. If the suspension setup is too soft, the car's floor could strike the asphalt aggressively, damaging aerodynamics and even risking a crash. This fundamentally changes how teams must approach car setup, forcing them to run stiffer and higher configurations that may reduce aerodynamic performance across the rest of the lap. Striking the perfect balance here will likely become the biggest engineering challenge of the entire race weekend. Ferrari now holds real-world sensor data showing exactly how the SF26 behaves through La Monumental, giving them precise insight into how much the car compresses under load and the exact ride height required to prevent the floor from scraping, while every other team will be forced to estimate those values through simulation alone, leaving Ferrari with a clear and measurable advantage based on reality rather than prediction. And the most remarkable part of this entire operation is that Ferrari did not spend a single cent to gain it. But before going further, if you are enjoying this content and want to stay updated on everything happening both on and off the track, make sure to like the video and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks for the support. Now, according to reports, the Madring organizers invited Ferrari and covered all associated costs, which in the era of the budget cap makes this opportunity even more valuable because track running is extremely expensive. Yet since the promoter absorbed the expenses, it did not impact Ferrari's cost cap in the same way a traditional test would, effectively giving them 200 kilometers of exclusive data at a brand new circuit while someone else paid for it. And this arrangement also benefits the Madrid organizers significantly because the circuit remains under construction, with the surface completed but curbs, garages, and sections of the pit lane still unfinished, meaning a full-speed Formula One run acts as the ultimate stress test for the asphalt ahead of the official Grand Prix in September, and this timing aligns perfectly with Ferrari's growing momentum in the championship, as Leclerc's victory at Silverstone confirmed that the SF26 is competitive across multiple track types beyond just slower street circuits, while Hamilton's podium finish reinforced the strength of their driver pairing, with both drivers pushing each other, sharing data, and maximizing the team's overall points haul, and their joint participation in Madrid highlights how seriously Ferrari is approaching this title fight by ensuring both drivers gain direct experience of the circuit to improve simulator correlation. However, despite this strong position, a potential issue is emerging involving rear wing flexibility. As reports suggest, the FIA has opened discussions with Ferrari and Red Bull following concerns raised after Max Verstappen suffered a major rear wing failure at the British Grand Prix, crashing heavily at Stowe Corner while in contention for a podium finish, an incident he described over team radio as extremely dangerous due to the risk of serious injury, especially since a similar issue had already appeared during qualifying in Austria the previous week, prompting the FIA to closely examine flexible rear wing designs to ensure they meet safety standards, and any directive forcing teams like Ferrari or Red Bull to modify or reinforce their wings could significantly influence the competitive balance in the latter half of the season. Yet for now Ferrari appears to be in control, carrying strong momentum from Silverstone, fielding two drivers performing at peak level, and possessing exclusive early data on the newest circuit on the calendar. And beyond the technical advantage, there is also a clear psychological impact from this move, as being the first team to run at the Madring sends a strong signal to rivals that Ferrari is proactive, aggressive, and willing to exploit every detail within the regulations to gain an edge, a mindset that is often decisive in championships where margins are measured in fractions of a second, and an approach that Ferrari has historically struggled to maintain. While competitors like McLaren and Mercedes focus heavily on car development, Ferrari is simultaneously extracting performance through strategic execution and operational efficiency. And there is also an ironic element to this situation, considering the Spanish Grand Prix features two national heroes in Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso, both with past connections to Ferrari, leading some to expect a Spanish driver would take the honor of completing the first proper laps of the new circuit. Although Sainz did participate in earlier promotional activities with an older Williams car and even drove a Ford Mustang around the layout, it was ultimately Ferrari, an Italian team with an international driver lineup, that secured the milestone of running a current Formula One car there first, prompting questions among fans about why teams like Aston Martin or Williams were not given the same opportunity. But in reality, the difference came down to preparation, as Ferrari strategically preserved their filming day for this exact scenario. And when the Formula One grid arrives in Madrid this September, every team will effectively be starting from scratch except Ferrari, who have already gathered critical data and completed valuable groundwork that could prove decisive in securing a crucial victory on Spanish soil. So the question remains whether this move represents pure strategic brilliance or highlights a regulatory gap the FIA may need to address before other teams attempt to follow the same path. Share your thoughts in the comments and let me know your perspective. And until next time, drive safe and goodbye.